Not one maid survived the millionaire's daughter until this one did the unthinkable. In the heart of a storm-swept night, the mansion loomed like a dark specter, whispering secrets that sent shivers racing down spines. The wind howled through the creaking rafters, as if warning the curious souls drawn to its gothic charm. None had survived the infamous tragedy that unfolded within its walls. A tale of horror so thick it could be sliced like the stale bread served on the infamous servant's table. Newspapers dubbed it the cursed continuum, and for good reason. Every maid who dared to take the job had vanished under the millionaire's daughter's enigmatic shadow. Was it madness? Witchcraft? Or something even more sinister? A chill raced through Clara when she stepped onto the sweeping staircase of that opulent hall, lit only by the feeble flicker of candles. The photographs lining the walls glowered down at her like a jury of the damned. The millionaire's family, all smiles and bright eyes, now faded into ghostly visages that seemed to follow her every move. She had been warned by the old town folk. "Stay away," they said, "it's the whispers of the dead that stalk those halls." But here she was, tight chest pounding, the lump in her throat growing bigger with each passing second. She wanted the job, the money, the chance to start anew, but dread gnawed at her insides. Clara shook it off, focusing on the tasks at hand. The house rumbled with unspoken tension, shadows danced, and distant laughter echoed from the unseen corners. "It's just paranoia," she muttered. But still, the notion clung like thick fog. Then, an unusual sound broke through the stillness, a soft, muffled cry from deep within the house. Her heart leapt into her throat. She had never felt fear like this. Was she alone, or was there another presence, someone or something looking to make contact? Questions whirled in her mind like leaves in a storm. Before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash the like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who is part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As Clara moved cautiously toward the sound, her hands trembled with anticipation. The air was electric, charged with a sense of impending doom. Suddenly, she turned a corner and froze. A door slightly ajar revealed a flicker of candlelight spilling into the darkness. She hesitated, breath hitching, then pushed it open just enough to peer inside. What she saw twisted her stomach like a rope. An old trunk, locked tight, and standing beside it, the ghostly figure of a maid. Cloaked in decay, her eyes were wide with unspeakable fear, her mouth opened in a silent scream as if warning Clara to turn back. As those eyes locked onto Clara's, time froze. What had this maid discovered? And who would come next? Would Clara be the next victim of the hidden curse? The hairs on her neck stood on end, the whispers of the past a constant reminder. But curiosity, longing even gripped her heart. She couldn't turn away now, she was in too deep. What had she unleashed? And what was going to happen next? The figure of the maid hovered in Clara's vision, a dreadful specter frozen in time. Clara's heart raced. She wasn't just a casual observer in this haunted mansion anymore. Whatever this figure had seen, whatever twisted knowledge it held, seemed to penetrate the thick fog of mystery wrapping around her. She opened her mouth to speak, but not a sound escaped. Suddenly, a chilling breeze swept through the door, extinguishing the brittle candlelight in the room, plunging Clara into darkness. Panic clawed at her throat. She stepped back instinctively, her heel catching on a loose floorboard that creaked ominously beneath her weight. It felt like the mansion itself held its breath, waiting for her next move. Who are you?" she finally stammered, her voice a mere whisper, barely piercing the oppressive silence. The maid remained still for a moment, then lifted her hand, pointing toward the trunk. It was a simple motion, yet it struck Clara like lightning. In that silent plea lay the weight of secrets, burdens only a maid could bear in this cursed house. Clara's adrenaline kicked in. She felt compelled to defy her instinct to flee. This was a moment that held potential power. With shaking hands, she moved toward the trunk, the softwood graining oddly warm against her fingertips. What lay locked inside could be the key to unraveling the mysteries surrounding the millionaire's daughter. The trunk was locked, but not for long. Clara's resolve hardened. Within her intuition burned a fierce determination. She glanced back at the maid, still encased in fine layers of despair. "I can help you," she called softly, her heart racing with the promise of hope. The maid's otherworldly eyes remained fixed on the trunk, a reflection of Clara's own curiosity. With newfound zeal, Clara searched the room for anything that might help. Her heart thudded louder than the storm outside as she grabbed an old candelabra from a dusty side table. Its iron was cold and unforgiving, but she was desperate now. She smashed it against the lock, the echo reverberating through the dark corners of the room. The first crack brought a rush of exhilaration. The second blow shattered it wide open. The trunk opened slowly, creaking like a voice awakening from long slumber. Clara held her breath, anticipation gripping her soul like a vice. Inside, layers of yellowed papers, brittle with time, sprawled like the ghostly secrets of a forsaken life. And then she saw something glimmering in the faint light. A silver locket. It lay at the bottom, ornate and alluring, a whisper of love lost in the shadows, but as Clara reached for it, the maid's figure flickered, her form growing hazy. "No!" Clara gasped, pulling her hand back. The air intensified, a palpable energy crackling around them as the house awakened, as if responding to her reckless curiosity. "Wait! What do I need to do?" Clara cried, brandishing the locket she dared not touch. The maid's eyes transformed, filled with sorrow and urgency. In those moments, an overwhelming wave of dread washed over Clara. It was a warning. Warnings were never light. The walls creaked, the chandelier above swayed ominously. This mansion was not finished with her. Whatever secrets lived in those shadows had awakened, and they weren't going to stay hidden. Before she could react, a loud crash echoed from the hallway, followed by sinister laughter, childlike, yet void of innocence. Clara spun around, every muscle rigid. "What was that?" she breathed, her voice echoing her terror. She felt a rush of icy breath down her neck, the kind that told her she was being watched. Clara took a step backward, the locket still in hand. Something deep within her warned this was just the beginning. The mansion had many more secrets to spill, and they would demand a high price. She could feel it, a sinister energy. The questions nagged at her, gnawing harder as shadows converged around her. Clara faced the door. Would she dare to confront whatever waited outside, or would that laughter be the last thing she ever heard? And in the silence that followed her thoughts, a new chilling realization sank in. She wasn't alone, not anymore. Clara's breath caught in her throat as the laughter echoed again, a brittle sound that slinked through the shadows like an uninvited guest. She felt as if the walls themselves were leaning closer, pressing in on her, hungry for whatever truth lay hidden in her newfound discovery. Each heartbeat thrummed in her ears, telling her to run, yet her feet remained rooted in place, caught in the web of her own curiosity. She turned slowly toward the door, the locket glimmering subtly in the faint light. The maid's eyes bore into her, filled with something she couldn't quite decipher: fear, desperation, perhaps even a glimmer of hope against the tide of despair that shrouded this manor. "I can help you, but I need to know what is happening," Clara murmured, as though the darkness might somehow answer. The laughter echoed again, this time mingled with faint scratching, like little fingers tracing paths along the walls. Clara's heart raced at the thought of what or who might be on the other side of the door. It felt wrong, so deeply wrong, but the locket pulled at her like a magnet, demanding her attention. With one last glance at the maid, whose form appeared to flicker like a candle, Clara made her decision. She approached the door, each step weighing heavier than the last. She raised her hand, trembling, and gripped the doorknob, colder than ice under her palm. Just as she twisted it, the scratching stopped. Silence fell like a shroud, heavy and suffocating, pressing against her chest. "Do not open that door," a voice whispered from behind her. It was soft, like the rustle of autumn leaves, yet it sliced through the quiet. Clara turned, but the maid's visage flickered again, and she was alone once more, clutching the locket with icy fingers. "What do you mean?" Clara whispered back, her voice trembling. But the figure merely pointed again towards the trunk, urgency etched into her pale features. Clara felt a wave of despair wash over her. The secrets inside the trunk might answer more questions than any doorway could. But stepping away from the door felt like defying an unspoken challenge. Clara was trapped between safety and the irresistible lure of the unknown. Then, without warning, the door burst open, revealing the empty hallway. The shadows crowded in, grotesque shapes twisting and contorting, almost alive. The laughter returned, louder now, mocking Clara's hesitation. "You won't find what you seek, girl, not before you pay the price," it taunted, the darkness coiling tightly around her shoulders. Clara gasped, heart pounding, mind racing. She had to choose: retreat into the darkness with the maid, or plunge into the perilous hallway and face whatever horror awaited. She looked back at the maid, whose gaze urged her forward, desperation glaring through the wispy figure. With every ounce of strength, she took a step into the hallway, the locket still clutched tightly in her fist. The laughter grew, wrapping around her like a sinister embrace, urging her deeper into the very heart of the mansion. "Don't turn back," she muttered to herself, though doubt gnawed at her. What familiar shadows could have emerged from her past? As she ventured forth, the house seemed to pulse with life, drawing Clara toward its center. Whispers floated on the air around her, tantalizingly close, brushing against her skin like a ghostly caress. She could almost make out words, snippets of secrets woven into the fabric of the night. And just as the laughter faded into something that felt dangerously like a warning, Clara reached the corridor's end. A door stood ajar, illuminated faintly from within. It beckoned her like an enticement, promising revelations that would change everything or perhaps seal her fate. What lay beyond those doors? Clara inched closer, heart pounding, suspense bubbling to the surface. She hesitated, hand hovering over the handle as she caught a glimpse of movement through the opening, an undulating shadow, fierce and inviting. Would she uncover the truth or plunge deeper into the mansion's dark embrace? As the shadows danced before her, Clara took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the locket in her pocket, a heavy token of the mysteries waiting to be unveiled. And as she stepped forward, ready or not, she realized the mansion was hungry for her. But for what, and at what cost? Clara's fingers trembled as they brushed against the door handle, feeling the cold metal fit snugly against her palm. She could hear her pulse hammering in her ears, drowning out the whispers that clawed at her thoughts and urged her to look inside. The warm glow spilling from the cracked doorway was almost inviting, but the shadows surrounding it crept with sinister intent, ready to snatch her away if she lingered too long. She shut her eyes for a heartbeat, steeling herself. Whatever this is, she thought, reminding herself, I have to know. With a swift flick of her wrist, she swung the door wide open. A room sprawled out before her, cloaked in a dusty golden light. It was unlike anything Clara had imagined. Mirrors lined the walls, fanning out like an infinite hallway of reflections. In the center of the room stood a solitary table, draped in a tattered white cloth. Atop it lay a series of strange objects, candles of varying sizes, a blood-red rose, and a small book, ancient and worn, its pages yellowed with age. "Welcome, Clara," came the soft voice again, this time louder, echoing eerily off the walls. She whipped around, but no one was there, just the untouched shadows that seemed to hold their breath as they observed her every movement. Taking a tentative step inside, Clara felt the air shift, something like static electricity prickling her skin. What was it about this place that felt both strangely familiar and entirely foreign? Was it the way the light danced in the mirrors, or the feeling that eyes were watching her every breath? The laughter resonated within her mind again, closer this time, and it felt like barbed wire dragging through her thoughts. Clara's heart raced as she spotted a familiar figure reflected in the mirror. The maid. Her wide eyes stared back, fearful yet filled with an urgency that set Clara's insides churning. "Don't listen to them." The maid's unvoiced warning echoed in Clara's mind as she turned to look back at the table. Ignoring the instinct to flee, Clara stepped further into the room. She could feel her feet sinking into the floor, as if the wood were gripping her, reluctant to let her leave. The book beckoned to her, its spine cracked, begging to unveil the secrets trapped within. As Clara reached for it, the room plunged into darkness. The mirrors cracked, a chorus of glass shattering against the air, and screams loud and piercing rose around her, a cacophony of fear. She stumbled back, her pulse quickening, but she couldn't help but gaze into the depths of the mirrors, where the shadows writhed like living things. The laughter reached a fever pitch, melding into a shriek that echoed endlessly. Clara's heart thundered in her chest, and she felt the shadows trying to pull her in, threatening to engulf her completely. "Clara!" That voice again, persistent and urgent. She turned sharply, scanning the room, when she caught sight of the locket glowing brightly in her pocket. Her fingers wrapped around it, and suddenly the laughter turned to a snarl, cold and biting. "Who's there?" she shouted, dread pooling in her stomach. Only the memories you thought buried in the price you're willing to pay. The voice lingered, coiling around her like smoke. The shadows surged toward her, and Clara could no longer tell where she ended and the darkness began. Panic enveloped her, a suffocating wave as the glimmer of hope began to dim. "Choose wisely, Clara," it whispered, mocking. "Will you uncover the truth or succumb to the darkness?" Suddenly, the floor beneath her gave way. She felt herself falling, the world twisting around her until she landed in a heap on a floor that felt unnervingly familiar. As she stared up at the twisted shapes of her surroundings, Clara realized this wasn't just another room. It was a place she had longed to forget. "Welcome back," a voice slithered through the air, chilling her bones. It was a voice she had not heard in years, a specter from her past. Her heart plummeted as she faced the entity emerging from the darkness, a reminder of the profound guilt she had buried deep inside. What would they want from her this time? With the locket still clutched tightly in her hand, Clara had to decide to face her past or let it haunt her forever. Then she heard it again, the laughter creeping closer, hungry for retribution. Clara's breath hitched, and she braced herself for the reckoning that awaited. What truth would her memories reveal? And would she have the strength to confront what she had tried so hard to escape? The air was heavy, suffocating, as Clara turned to face the voice that had pierced through the shadows. Her eyes strained against the darkness, seeking the flicker of what she once knew. Each heartbeat pounded like a drum, resounding in her chest, urging her to move, to act. "Do you remember me, Clara?" The entity emerged, twisting in the dim light, an ever-shifting silhouette that twisted memories into grotesque forms. The features became clearer, a face she had seen just before she ran away so long ago. It was her mother. But not the compassionate woman she once adored. This figure was a haunting parody, eyes void of warmth, laced with disdain. "You thought you could forget." Clara's breath caught in her throat. "No, you're not real," she whispered, shaking her head vehemently. "You can't be." But the familiar scent of her mother's perfume, a lingering trace of lavender, wrapped around her senses like barbed wire, tugging at the edges of her sanity. "Oh, but I am." The voice dripped thick with sarcasm, an echo that bounced between the mirrors. "You walked away, Clara. Left me behind. Do you think I've forgotten?" Terror clawed at her. A vision crept into her mind, her mother standing alone, faded and powerless, while Clara fled and trapped her in the very past she now evaded. Guilt weighed against her chest like an anchor, dragging her deeper into the abyss of what she had buried. "Face it. You cannot escape your choices," the entity cried, its voice crescendoing into a haunting wail that surged, filling the room. The shadows lurked, feeding off her anguish, whispering secrets that made her insides twist tighter. Clara stumbled, her heart racing like a trapped animal. "What do you want from me?" She fought to keep her voice steady, yet even she heard the tremble within it. "Your penance." The word hung in the air, bitter and sharp. It sliced through her, recalling memories that splintered her resolve. The night spent in tension, the dread heavy in the pit of her stomach. Every time she had wished to turn back time, to save her mother from whatever darkness engulfed her before Clara could flee. "Is this why you drew me back? To watch me suffer?" Clara's words pierced through the shadowy haze. "To make me relive my worst moments?" Yes, and more. The shadows danced wildly, the mirrors reflecting fragments of painful memories. Laughter turned to silence, the scent of roses wilting, and whispers of apologies never given. "You were selfish, Clara. You wanted to live while I withered." Each reflection flashed like a knife, made worse by the laughter that erupted again, full of malice and hunger. It echoed in a sinister symphony, mingling with her mother's distorted pleas. Clara's grip on the locket tightened. It was her only tether to the reality she had left behind. "Face the truth." The entity lunged toward her, shadows intertwining, and Clara felt herself being pulled closer to that void. The room spiraled, mirrors shattering under the weight of her betrayal, exposing darkness that was all-consuming. "No!" With a sudden surge of energy, Clara yanked the locket from her pocket, its light flaring with unexpected warmth. "I won't be trapped again. I will not pay for your sins." The entity recoiled, the shadows retreating with reluctant whispers, drawing the darkness back until it was merely a dim outline. From within the chaos, a flicker of hope glimmered. Do you think that light can protect you? The voice hissed, now a faint rasp. You cannot hide from what you've done. Clara stood there, heart racing, the weight of choice hanging over her. The laughter echoed again, a cruel promise, a reminder of unaddressed guilt. She could hear the whispers, feel the truth pushing against her walls, begging her to confront it. What if I dare? She asked herself, visions of resolution colliding with the fear of what triumphed heartlessly in the past, but as the entity laughed, that chilling sound wrapping around her throat like a noose, she knew one thing. The battle was just beginning. What price would she be willing to pay to reclaim her freedom? And would she be able to face the hidden darkness waiting to claim her once again? Clara felt a riptide of emotions surging through her as the entity's laughter faded. It was unnerving, yet the light from her locket pulsed gently in her palm, urging her to push forward. The air still crackled with the remnants of dread, but Clara knew she had to confront this specter. Who are you? She demanded, voice steadying, pushing through the heaviness of her past. What do you want? The entity flickered, an indecipherable smirk curling its lips. You know who I am, Clara. I am your shame. I am the pieces of you that you refuse to acknowledge. Glimmers of past arguments echoed in her mind, her mother's expectations, her incessant desire for freedom, the suffocating pressure that clouded every family gathering. Clara felt like she was spinning out of control. Yet with every ounce of willpower, she planted her feet firmly on the ground. No! She screamed, as much at herself as at the figure before her. I won't let you drag me down anymore. You don't control me. Well, aren't you brave? The entity cooed, its voice slicing through the air like glass. But bravery has its limits, doesn't it? How will you face your truth, Clara? When you see what you've lost? The mirrors around her shimmered ominously, reflecting fleeting images, a younger Clara, bright-eyed and hopeful, only to be eclipsed by moments where disappointment replaced delight. She gasped as it struck her. The distorted versions of her past screamed for attention, clinging to her heart. I was afraid. She shouted back, tears pooling in her eyes. I didn't want to be like you. I thought leaving would save me. Laughter erupted once more, but this time it held a trace of sadness, a disquieting resonance, as if the entity recognized Clara's struggle too well. And yet here you stand, staring into your own abyss, it taunted, edging closer, nearly engulfing her in shadow. Tell me, how does it feel to know you can never escape? Clara felt the shadows curling into a familiar grip, squeezing the breath from her lungs. Memory after memory swarmed her, each more painful than the last, the confinement of her childhood home, the worst of their arguments, promises unfulfilled, and the image of her mother alone in the dark, a candle flickering, ready to extinguish. But just as despair threatened to pull her under, the warmth of the locket radiated fiercely, igniting something deep within her. I won't hide, Clara declared, shaking off the icy caress of the shadows. I won't run from my past any longer. The entity froze, surprise flickering in its depths. You think confronting your ghosts will save you? Yes. Clara shot back, feeling the pulse of courage rising in her chest. It's time to make amends. I'll face the truth head-on. You can't hold me hostage anymore. The air shifted, vibrating like taut strings on an instrument, charged with her defiance. The laughter faltered, a crack appearing in its mocking demeanor. Just as Clara felt her resolve strengthen, the walls of the room began to shimmer, mirrors trembling like leaves in a storm. Then let us see how you fare, the entity sneered, the shadows swirling into a tempest of chaos. Clara's heartbeat raced louder than the din around her. She barely noticed the room collapsing around her as she focused on the glimmer of light in her hands. What would happen if she shattered the mirrors? As fragments flew around her like sharp arrows, she readied herself, praying for clarity. The laughter and anguish swirled into a cacophony, vibrating against her senses until one single truth broke through: I will not face this alone. In that pivotal moment, a voice emerged from the distance, a strong and familiar tone piercing through the torrent. Clara! Remember who you are. Her heart stuttered. Could it be? Mom? Clara cried, heart racing as fragments of her mother returned, clearer and bolder than ever. Is that you? The entity shrieked, fury reverberating in the air, but Clara stood resolute. The battle wasn't just hers anymore, it was a war against what had been stolen from them both. If only she could draw that light, confront the shadows, and reclaim everything her mother lost. But would her mother's voice be strong enough to guide her? Could they restore the bond twisted and shattered by enough pain to last a lifetime? Clara's heart raced as the storm of shadow threatened closure around her, uncertain of the path forward. Would the light win against the dark, or would she be lost forever in the depths of despair? Clara's breath quickened as the cacophony raged around her. Glass shards sliced through the air, each one a shard of memory, another piece of her life threatening to pierce her heart. But her mother's voice lingered in her mind, strong and unwavering. It anchored her in the storm, a reminder of the bond that had once given her strength. Clara! The voice called again, cutting through the chaos. You can do this! Trust in our love! With a fierce cry, she stepped forward, the locket gleaming brighter in her grasp. It pulsed with warmth, wrapping her in a cocoon of light. In that moment, she felt her mother's love as a tangible force, breaking through the shadows that threatened to consume her. I'm not ashamed, she shouted, her voice echoing defiantly through the shattering mirrors. I'm here to face my truth. The entity's laughter turned frantic, a raucous blend of anger and disbelief. You think light can drive me away? You think love can save you? Yes. Clara shouted back, shattering the last of her uncertainty. If I can confront you, I can reclaim my whole self. The mirrors exploded in a violent burst of glass, scattering reflections of her past like confetti. Each fragment revealed another layer of her history, her failures, triumphs, moments of joy tucked into the depths of despair. Clara felt the raw emotions wash over her. Could all this pain truly lead her to freedom? As the last shards of glass fell away, the shadows around her flickered like dying flames. They curled and twisted, frantically searching for a way to reassert their dominance. The entity's form wavered, the once menacing presence now filled with a hint of desperation. Do you really believe you've won? It hissed, its form growing more transparent as if realizing it had lost its hold over her. You are nothing without your shame. What will you do when faced with the truth of your choices? Clara's heart raced, each word a dagger aimed at her doubts. I want to be defined by what you say. I am more than my past. I can change. The entity screeched, a sound of pure anguish that echoed off the walls, filling the air with a chilling sorrow. You'll never escape me. I am your darkness. Not anymore. Clara cried, clenching her jaw. The light from her locket exploded outward, a radiant shield against the entity's icy grip. She faced the entity head-on. You're just a memory now, a part of me I refuse to ignore. I'll own every fragment of my life, and I'll use them to build something new. The light expanded further, pushing against the entity with a tangible force. Clara felt the love of her mother surrounding her, filling the void left by despair. It wrapped tightly around her as she drew strength from her fear and dread, merging it with the warmth of acceptance. Suddenly, an intense flash blinded her, and Clara shielded her eyes with her arms. Heart pounding, she felt the darkness evaporate, unraveling into the ether as if it had never existed. The echoes of long-buried memories faded, replaced by an overwhelming sense of liberation. When the light subsided, she found herself standing in the remains of the shattered room, now bright and calm with gleaming surfaces polished by the sun streaming through a window. Mom? She whispered, feeling the space around her. Where are you? Her question hung in the air, unanswered. Was the darkness truly vanquished? Or would it linger on the edges of her mind, waiting for a moment of weakness? As Clara stepped cautiously forward, she felt a certain hollowness in her chest. The battle may have ended, but the war over her heart was far from over. A rustling sound made her pulse quicken. Something whispered her name, drawing her towards a cracked door at the far end of the room. Was there more she needed to confront? Secrets yet to be discovered? She hesitated, the gravity of her past weighing down heavily. What awaited her beyond that door? Could it possibly hold the very answers she sought? Or would it lead her to face even darker truths that lay in the shadows? Clara's heart pounded as she stared at the cracked door, its edges splintered and darkened, a reminder of the many battles fought within. She stepped forward, each move pulled by a mix of dread and anticipation. The whispered sound of her name echoed again, now a soft, siren-like call. Was it a trap or a path toward understanding? Her hand trembled as she reached for the doorknob. With a breath, she turned it slowly, the creak sending shivers down her spine. What lay inside? A part of her felt a surge of excitement, a desire to dive deeper into the depths of her own psyche. The other part held her back, petrified of the darkness still lurking. As the door creaked open, she entered a dimly lit room shrouded in shadows. A chill enveloped her, creeping into her bones. Clara barely noticed the ghostly figures darting across the walls, the flickering remnants of memories past, only visible in the fading light. They whispered secrets she couldn't quite catch, tantalizing and terrifying. Face what you dread, Clara, one soft voice urged, weaving through the air. Only then can you find the truth. A shiver ran down her spine as she focused on a figure standing in the corner, shrouded in darkness. As she brought her light closer, the figure shifted, revealing itself to be a mirror, but not just any mirror. It was one that pulsed with emotion and strained with tension, filled with fragments that had pieced together her existence. Is this where I confront the real me? She murmured, uncertain whether to take a step forward or run back through the door. But the room silenced her internal battle, somehow grounding her. She stepped closer and, with each inch, fragments of her life appeared in swirling reflections, moments she thought long buried. There she stood, a younger version of herself, stumbling through lost friendships, decisions plagued by doubt and fear. Each reflection ignited an ache in her chest as memories flooded back. Clara, the girl who had given into insecurity. Clara, who had pushed away those who cared for her. No, no! She yelled, backing away. I'm past that. I want to go through this again. But the mirror's surface shimmered, forcing her to confront the darkness. You can't move forward until you confront the truth, it urged, echoing her mother's earlier words. What will you do now? Reject or accept? The weight of those words crashed over her, and Clara felt the urge to resist, to pull back into the safe cocoon of denial. But deep down, she knew this confrontation was crucial. She couldn't let this encounter consume her like before. Taking a breath, Clara summoned her courage. I'm here, and I won't hide anymore. She declared, her voice trembling yet strong. I'm ready to see everything, even the things I fear the most. As she peered into the depths of the mirror, the figures solidified into vivid scenes, painful and yet oddly cathartic. She saw herself standing alone at a party, a heavy heart juxtaposed against the laughter of others. Feelings of inadequacy washed over her, but she fought against the tide. She would not drown this time. With an unexpected pulse, the mirror cracked, racing up the surface like a spider's web, revealing new visions half hidden behind the veil. Those moments were illusions melded with regret, the echoes of lost opportunities. Each crack birthed a new layer, demanding her attention, begging her to uncover deeper truths entwined with ribbons of redemption. Tension hung thick in the air as the light flickered, unveiling yet another reflection of choice. What would she dare to confront next? Was the journey to healing still too fraught with danger? Before she could decipher what awaited her, a loud crash reverberated in the distance, echoing through the chamber and rattling her focus. The shadows began to flicker violently as whispers escalated into frantic chaos. Clara, you've unlocked the door, a voice hissed from the shadows. But some truths are better left undisturbed. Panic surged through her veins as her pulse quickened. The door she had entered was now the only exit, but it felt like a trap. What had she unleashed? Was she prepared for the battle that loomed with each step she had taken? As Clara bolted toward the doorway, the reflections overhead swirled primal and frantic, engulfing her in a whirlpool of confusion. The light dimmed, and she fought the encroaching shadows that threatened to drag her back into the abyss. Could she still escape the truths she hadn't yet faced? Or would the darkness swallow her whole, leaving her lost within its embrace forever? Clara sprinted towards the door, her heart racing, every instinct screaming that safety lay beyond. The shadows whipped around her, whispering secrets she dared not hear, while the mirror's reflections shattered, exploding into millions of glimmering shards that danced in the air like fireflies. Clara, the voice beckoned again, closer now, mingling with the cacophony of her racing thoughts. You can't outrun what you don't understand. She hesitated, a split second too long as temptation flickered in her chest. What if this darkness had a purpose? What if it held answers to questions she had buried deep inside? But as she neared the door, a chilling realization struck her: these weren't just shadows, they were reflections of her own fears, memories waiting to be acknowledged. With a surge of adrenaline, Clara flung herself towards the door, yanking it open. The room beyond felt different. Chillier. The air pulsed with a raw energy, filled with the sense of damp earth and confinement. Each breath was hard to draw. Shadows stretched toward her, clawing, as if the darkness itself wanted to keep her in its grasp. Don't escape, Clara. The voice hissed, sharper now, leaving a bitter aftertaste in her mouth. Every step away from your truth makes you weaker. She shot a glance back. The mirror stood there, a fractured remnant of what she had seen. The last remaining reflection fractured into a mist of despair, warped and distorted, begging for release. She felt an ache in her heart, an identification with that lost version of herself. No! She whispered, as a wave of pain hit her, corrosive but somehow enlightening. I won't let you control me. The shadows recoiled slightly, as if shaken by her defiance. Gritting her teeth, she raised her trembling hand. The lingering whispers quieted to a notorious stillness. What would happen if she finally confronted the pain? In that moment, she turned to the mirror, the cold glass now reflecting a facet of her that rippled with strength. Show me! She shouted, a battle cry echoing in the stillness. Show me everything! The mirror vibrated, and she felt a sharp pulse of energy surge through her. Images burst forth, unbridled, and then she was flying through memories, scenes unfolding violently like a film reel unspooling at a reckless speed. A schoolyard where she felt humiliated, an empty home echoing with lost laughter, a heartbreaking goodbye that had seared her soul. Each memory is a thread woven into your being. The voice called out, now a mass of agony. Will you sever them or braid them into strength? The images morphed, turning jagged reflections into vibrant colors, illuminating the truths she had shied away from. She saw herself helping friends, fights for what she loved, moments of pure joy that had intertwined with conflict. They danced before her, pain and light, darkness and hope. Armed with newfound clarity, Clara charged through the door. The blinding light swallowed her whole, and the shadows hissed in fury. She braced herself as the chaos enveloped her in its chaotic embrace. The air crackled like electricity, and dread hung thick around her. What awaited her on the other side of this threshold? Was she finally stepping into clarity, or merely stumbling into another layer of uncertainty? The silence was deafening as she emerged into the unknown, breathless and disoriented. But something tugged at her heart, a feeling of anticipation mingled with a haunting question. Clara, what will you choose next? Before she could comprehend what lay ahead, the light flickered ominously, and a new figure emerged from the shadows. The eyes of the stranger glinted with a knowing gleam, piercing through the haze. You think you know everything, but the truth may shatter your very existence. Clara's breath caught in her throat. What had she stepped into? And at what price would she learn the answers she sought? The weight of the moment pressed down on Clara, heavy like a stone lodged in her chest. Before her stood a figure cloaked in shadows, features shrouded but eyes glimmering with an unsettling familiarity. Who are you? Clara demanded, frustration and terror clawing at her mind. The corners of the stranger's lips twisted into a smirk that sent a shiver cascading through Clara's spine. I am the keeper of truths, the figure declared, voice low, smooth, and dripping with mockery. You seek answers, but what you uncover may change everything. Clara took a deep, steadying breath, fury igniting within her at the challenge. I'm not afraid of the truth, she retorted, the conviction in her voice louder than the howling memories that clawed at her mind. Those memories, the good, the bad, the ugly, were worth confronting. I've fought through shadows and darkness. I won't cower now. With defiance in her heart, Clara took a step closer. The shadows around the figure shrank and twisted, revealing fleeting scenes of her life, the broken bonds with friends, the whispering doubts of her childhood, the painful moments she wished she could erase. Yet instead of shrinking back, Clara stood tall. Show me, she commanded, unleashing the strength she had discovered during her journey. The figure's eyes narrowed, but an amused glimmer sparked behind their depths. Very well, Clara. Your reckoning begins now. With a flick of the wrist, the shadows swirled violently, wrapping around Clara like a tempest before exploding into a banquet of memories. Clara found herself flung into the past, each memory suffused with stark clarity. She stood outside her childhood home, a familiar aroma of lavender filling the air. The scene felt both achingly nostalgic and piercingly painful. Clara's younger self stood at the door, conflicted, yearning to enter yet terrified of the echoes of arguments inside. Laughter faded to echoes of despair as she watched herself step back, the girl in her past fleeing from the darkness she had yet to overcome. Why did you run? The voice whispered like the rustle of leaves. Clara's heart raced. She wanted so desperately to reach out, to call out to that girl. Because it hurt too much. She cried, her voice breaking the silence of the memory. I thought it would save me to leave. I thought, but the scene shifted. Now, she was at school, the bright sun painting a stark contrast against the weight of the whispers that surrounded her. She saw herself sitting alone in the cafeteria, laughter from other groups echoing like a taunt. Clara's lip curled, remembering how she had drowned in loneliness, believing no one would understand. Accept it. The shadowed figure hissed, swirling around her. Each step you take makes you weaker. You are indecisive. Clara grit her teeth. I can't hide anymore. I want to forgive myself, to bond with my past instead of tearing it apart. The memories swelled like a storm, forcing her to face her internal struggles. Moments flashed before her, the hug she never gave, the phone calls she never made, the connections severed by fear. Each moment represented a choice, a step away from the happiness she had once known. The tension in the room crackled as Clara grasped the locket tightly, feeling the warmth radiate through her palm. I'm not ashamed of my past. She shouted, words filled with newfound conviction. I won't let you reduce me to my fears. Suddenly, the light from the locket flared, illuminating the room. The shadows hissed in response, flickering and swirling with frenzied intensity. You think you can confront me with light? The figure challenged, snaring Clara in an icy grip. You are nothing without your demons. No. Clara shouted back, the shadow threatening to engulf her. I am not defined by negativity. I choose redemption. I will reclaim everything you've stolen from me. With a surge of strength, she held the locket aloft, and the light erupted in a wave, pushing back the shadows. Memories intertwined, melding into a tapestry of color and light, a reminder that healing was a choice. The figure of darkness writhed as if caught in a cyclone, fury and fear mingling. You cannot escape. It roared. But Clara had felt the warmth of understanding blossom in her heart. I won't let you define me. She screamed, releasing the tension coiled tightly in her chest. I forgive myself for every broken piece. With a blinding flash, Clara thrust her arm forward, unleashing the locket's power. The light enveloped her, consuming the shadows until echoes of laughter broke through the storm. What are you? The figure hissed, disbelief dripping from every word. I am free. Clara declared as the shadows dissipated into shimmering fires of memory, leaving only clarity behind. As the light faded, Clara stood in the center of a transformed space, a sanctuary of warmth and acceptance. All around her, love seeped through the air, wrapping her in its embrace. The past no longer shackled her, it was woven into her, a tapestry of who she had become. And finally, the figure melted back into the shadows, relinquishing its hold on her. You've won this time, it hissed, retreating into darkness once more. But your journey has just begun, Clara breathed, inhaling peace. I will keep moving forward, she whispered to herself, feeling lighter than she had in years, ready to confront whatever awaited her next. And as she took her first steps into the brightly lit corridor beyond, she felt the strings of her heart vibrate with hope. All those truths, once chained by fear and regret, now glimmered bastions of strength. Clara embraced the light around her, knowing she held the power to shape what lay ahead. Thank you for being part of this emotional odyssey. If you loved this conclusion, then you need to subscribe right now. Don't miss a single exclusive story coming up that could change everything. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm, so we can reach even more incredible people. And flood that comments section with your reactions and theories. What did this ending mean for Clara? Finally, don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who could use some inspiration or a good scare. Your support makes the difference.